What if I told you that somewhere in suburban Australia, a family living what everyone called the perfect life just disappeared? No ransom note, no bodies, no explanation, just empty rooms and unanswered questions that still haunt investigators today. G'day everyone. Now before we dive into today's story, I need to be completely upfront with you. This case sits in that gray area between documented fact and local legend. This is speculative content, purely for entertainment purposes. If this story intrigues you, definitely do your own research. But here's why I'm sharing it anyway, because sometimes the stories that blur the line between truth and mystery are the ones that reveal the most about our deepest fears. And this one hits different. See, we all know Australia's got its share of mysterious disappearances. The Beaumont children, Harold Holt, Peter Falconio cases that become part of our national consciousness. But what I'm about to tell you about is different. This isn't about people who vanished in the outback or at the beach. This is about a family who disappeared from what looked like absolute suburban perfection. Picture this: a quiet suburb in Victoria, could be anywhere really. Toorak, Brighton, maybe Camberwell. You know the type: tree-lined streets, million-dollar homes, Range Rovers in every driveway. The kind of place where the biggest scandal is usually someone's bin being put out on the wrong day. The Hendersons, let's call them, that seemed to embody everything this suburb represented. David, successful in finance, probably pulled in $500,000 a year easy. Sarah, former marketing exec turned full-time mom, always impeccably dressed at the school pickup. 2 kids: Emma, 14, straight A student, swimming club captain. And little Jake, 8, the kind of kid who still believed in magic tricks and thought his dad was Superman. Their house? Absolute showstopper. You know those homes that make you slow down when you're driving past? Georgian colonial, perfectly manicured garden, that circular driveway that screams we've made it. The neighbors would joke, half envious, half admiring, that the Hendersons had won the lottery of life. But here's where it gets interesting. The perfect facade. Now, we've all heard the saying, right? If something seems too perfect, it probably is. But what does that actually mean when you're talking about real people, real lives? Think about your own neighborhood for a second. How well do you really know the family 3 doors down? Sure, you wave when you're getting the mail, maybe chat about the weather at the local Woolies. But do you know what happens when their front door closes? The Hendersons were active in their community. Sarah was on the school P&C, David coached weekend footy for the local juniors. They attended the neighborhood barbecues, always brought a nice bottle of wine. Emma was popular at school. Jake was that kid everyone's parents used as an example. Why can't you be more like little Jake Henderson? But here's what's fascinating about human nature: when everything looks perfect, we start looking for cracks. And according to local whispers, there were subtle things. The cracks begin to show. Mrs. Henderson from next door, you know the type, keeps tabs on everyone. She mentioned something odd to her daughter months later. The Henderson house was always pristine, right? But sometimes, late at night, she'd hear what sounded like furniture being moved around. Heavy scraping across the floors. At 2, 3 in the morning. The local postie, Kevin, noticed something too. The Hendersons used to be chatty, always asked about his day. But in the weeks leading up to, well, we'll get to that. David would barely acknowledge him. Just stood there at the window, watching, not waving back when Kevin tried to be friendly. And then there was the incident at Emma's school. Her best friend Chloe later told her mom that Emma had been asking strange questions. Things like, if you had to disappear, where would you go? And do you think it's possible to start completely over? Now, teenagers ask weird questions all the time, right? But combined with everything else, it paints a picture, doesn't it? The day everything changed. October 15th, let's say it was a Tuesday. Beautiful spring day in Melbourne. One of those perfect days that makes you remember why you love this country. School pickup time at Toorak Grammar. Chloe's mum, Amanda, was running late. She pulls up expecting to see the usual chaos: kids everywhere, parents chatting, Emma Henderson probably helping organize something because that's just who she was. But Emma wasn't there. Probably sick, Amanda thought. Happens all the time. But something fell off. You know that feeling? When your brain notices something's wrong before you can put your finger on it. She decided to swing by the Henderson house on her way home, just to check in, maybe drop off Emma's homework. The circular driveway was empty. Not unusual, could be running errands. But all the curtains were drawn. In the middle of the day, in a house that was usually filled with natural light. Amanda knocked. No answer. Rang the doorbell. Nothing. That's when she noticed the newspapers. 3 days' worth, just sitting there on the pristine doorstep. The investigation begins. Now, here's where things get properly strange. Amanda called the police just a welfare check, nothing dramatic. But when Senior Constable Mitchell arrived, what he found didn't make sense. The house was unlocked. Not broken into, unlocked. Like someone had just stepped out for milk and never came back. Inside, everything was perfect. Too perfect. Beds made with military precision. No dishes in the sink. No clothes in the hamper. It was like a display home, not a place where a family of 4 actually lived. But here's the thing that still gives me goosebumps: all their personal items were gone. Not stolen, mind you. Carefully removed. Family photos, personal documents, even Emma's swimming trophies. Gone. The cars were missing too. Both the Range Rover and David's BMW. But here's what's weird: they left behind everything that screamed wealth. Sarah's jewelry collection, worth probably 50 grand, still in the bedroom. David's watch collection, including that Rolex his father left him, still in its case. If you were running from something, would you leave behind $100,000 in easily portable valuables but take the family photo albums? The community responds. Word spread fast in a suburb like theirs. By evening, the street was full of neighbors, all trying to make sense of what they were seeing. Mrs. Patterson kept saying they were just here yesterday. Sarah waved at me from the garden. The school was in chaos. Emma's teachers couldn't understand it. She'd been in chemistry class just Friday, asking about extra credit assignments. Jake's year 3 teacher, Mrs. Shen, kept saying he'd been excited about the school concert next week. You know what struck me most about the community response? It wasn't just concern, it was fear. Because if the perfect family could just vanish, what did that say about the rest of us? Theories and possibilities. So what happened to the Hendersons? The theories range from the plausible to the absolutely wild. Theory 1. Witness protection. Maybe David saw something he shouldn't have. Corporate fraud, organized crime, who knows? The government swoops in, new identities, fresh start in Western Australia, or maybe even overseas. It would explain the precision, the lack of violence, the careful removal of personal items. But here's the problem with that theory: witness protection doesn't usually involve entire families vanishing overnight without telling anyone. There are protocols, procedures. Theory 2. Financial trouble. Perhaps the perfect life was built on lies. Maybe David was embezzling, or they were drowning in debt behind that flawless facade. Sometimes people think the only way out is to disappear completely. We've seen it before: families who look successful, but are actually mortgaged to the eyeballs, credit cards maxed out, investment schemes gone wrong. The pressure to maintain appearances in suburbs like theirs? It's enormous. Theory 3. Something darker. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. What if the perfect family wasn't so perfect behind closed doors? What if someone in that house was hiding something much worse than financial problems? I'm not making accusations here, but we know that domestic violence, abuse, even worse things can hide behind the most pristine facades. Maybe someone finally had enough and decided to take matters into their own hands. Theory 4. They chose to leave. This might be the most unsettling possibility of all. What if the Hendersons simply decided that their perfect life was a prison? What if they planned this together as a family and just walked away from everything? Think about it: the pressure to be perfect, to maintain appearances, to live up to everyone's expectations. What if they cracked under that pressure and decided to start over somewhere no one knew their names? The bigger questions. But here's what really keeps me up at night about this story: what does it say about the life we're all chasing? The Hendersons had everything our society tells us we should want: money, status, beautiful home, successful careers, talented kids. They were living the Australian dream, right? So why would someone make them disappear? Maybe the real horror isn't that they vanished. Maybe it's that they felt they had to. How many of us are living lives that look perfect from the outside, but feel empty on the inside? How many of us have wondered, even for just a moment, what it would be like to disappear and start over? And here's the thing that haunts me most: if the Hendersons did choose to leave, if they're out there somewhere living under different names, are they happier? Did they find whatever they were looking for? Or are they still running from something that you can't escape just by changing your address? The Australian context. You know, there's something particularly Australian about this story. We're a nation built on fresh starts, aren't we? Convicts who became settlers, immigrants who left everything behind for a better life, gold rushers chasing dreams across the continent. Maybe the idea of disappearing and starting over is more deeply embedded in our national psyche than we like to admit. The outback has always been a place where people could vanish, where questions weren't asked about your past. But this is different. This is the suburbs. This is the life we're all supposed to want. And if even that isn't enough, what does that say about us as a society? The ongoing mystery. Here's what really gets to me: somewhere out there, people know the truth. Maybe it's the Hendersons themselves, living quiet lives in Perth or Darwin, or maybe even overseas. Maybe it's someone who helped them disappear. Maybe it's someone who made them disappear. But the silence? The complete absence of any trace? That takes planning. That takes resources. That takes knowledge of how to vanish in the digital age when everything leaves a trail. And that's terrifying, isn't it? Because it means that in our connected, surveilled, social media-obsessed world, it's still possible to just disappear. What this teaches us. Whether the Henderson family ever existed or not, their story reflects something true about modern life. We're all performing, aren't we? Curating our lives for public consumption, maintaining facades that sometimes become prisons. The perfect lawn, the perfect job, the perfect kids. When does the pursuit of perfection become its own kind of trap? I think about my own life sometimes. The pressure to have it all figured out, to look successful, to never let anyone see the cracks. Maybe that's why stories like this resonate with us. Because deep down, we all understand the appeal of disappearing. Not literally, of course, but the fantasy of walking away from all the expectations, all the pressure, all the performance, and just being whoever you really are, wherever that might be. The real horror. You know what the real horror story is? It's not the disappearance. It's the life that came before it. The perfect life that felt so suffocating that vanishing seemed like the only escape. How many families in suburbs across Australia are living their own version of this story right now? Looking perfect from the outside while slowly dying on the inside. Maybe the Hendersons found freedom. Maybe they found peace. Or maybe they found that you can't run from yourself no matter how far you go. We'll probably never know, and maybe that's the point. So what do you think happened to the perfect family that disappeared? Are they out there somewhere, living their best lives under different names? Or is this story a warning about the price of perfection? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one, and honestly, some of your theories are better than anything I could come up with. If you enjoyed diving into this mystery with me, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. I've got more Australian mysteries coming your way, and trust me, some of them are even stranger than this one. And remember, if you're struggling with the pressure to be perfect, if your life feels like a performance you can't escape from, there are people who can help. You don't have to disappear to find yourself. Until next time, stay curious, stay questioning, and remember, the most interesting stories are often the ones where we never learn the ending.